So one of the things we keep asking our startups to think about is, how big is this opportunity? That's just a fancy word for saying is, when you're all done and you're spending the next couple of years on the startup, are you going to make like $1 million or are you going to make $1 billion? That is, how potentially large is the opportunity? And so what we really want to do is do what we call a market and opportunity analysis. What you've already put together is a business model canvas with your hypothesis that says, look, we're really passionate about this product or service, and we think there's a set of customers out there, and we've put together our revenue model, our first hypotheses, and saying we're going to make a lot of money, and that's great. But there's really kind of a method to this madness, and there's not only one way to do this, but this is the way we kind of think of it. You want to identify who your customers and markets are, and you have, but you now want to size the market, look at competitors, and figure out whether this market could grow. One of the other interesting observations about customer development is this notion of the pivot. Pivot was a term that my best student ever, Eric Ries, coined when he noticed the arrow between customer invalidation and customer discovery, and he actually gave it a name, which I think is incredibly accurate. A pivot says, what do you do when your hypotheses don't meet reality? And this is such a neat observation about startups and why what we now know is much different than before. What we now know, instead of firing executives, when our business model doesn't match what's going on outside in the real world, we fire the model. And we simply say, hey, our hypotheses were wrong. So because we've been building the product iteratively and incrementally and keeping our burn rate incredibly low, a pivot is a substantive change to one or more of the business model components. It just simply says, hey, this isn't our customer segment. Our customer segment is really here. Or, wait a minute, our revenue model shouldn't be freemium. We should be charging for it from day one. Or, wait a minute, we've been using the wrong distribution channel. We need a direct sales force. Or, gee, we have the wrong partners. By the way, an iteration is a minor change to one or more of the business model components. So, for example, an iteration would be going from charging from $9.99 to $6.99. A pivot would be a change of, gee, our pricing is going from freemium to subscription. That's a substantive change. So the key idea here is a pivot allows you to get out and make changes. Remember, typically only the founders could do pivots, but is actually the heart of what makes customer development radically different than what's come before. The other thing to notice about pivots is that you want to keep them up at a constant speed and a constant tempo. And you want your entire company operating with speed and tempo in decision making just like a metronome. Right? It's constant, it's consistent, and it's relentless.